Dumelang, nna ka lebitso ke Eliot Moleba. Ke tswa ko South Africa in Limpopo. Ke goletse ko Mokopane. And gone jwale ke nna mo Norway in Oslo. So I was named Mantidi after a woman, and she used to come to the house when I was still in my mother's belly and would tell my mom that I should be named after her. This is back in the 80s, before you had this technology where you could see the sex of a baby before they were born, at least in our region. And so sadly, she passed away before I was born. And when my mother delivered me in the hospital, they realized that I was a boy and not a girl. But because this woman had a gift of seeing, my family was not sure whether her asking for me to be named after her was some kind of a gift, a prophecy of some kind. So they decided to name me after her anyway. And that's how I get the name Mantidi. And then her middle name, or her English name, was Elizabeth. And my mother thought that it was going to be an overkill that I should have two female names. And she remembered that from school, there was a guy called Eliot. And because, it had Eliot, she thought it was closer to Elizabeth. And that's how I got the name that I have today. And then my nickname is Tumi. I know this confuses a lot of people because Tumi is often a short name for either Tumisho or Tumelo. And I got this name from someone, and today I don't know who it was. So I was a few days old, and this person just walked into the room, and when I was introduced to them as Mantidi, they said, "No, this is Tumi." And since then, everybody knew me as Tumi. And in South Africa, more especially at the time, you usually got two names: your English name and your African name. And very often people would use their English names in schools and then their African names socially. So today you can tell who knows me from where based on which name they call me. Because if they knew me, have met me through any kind of educational context, then they will call me by the English name. But if they know me from back when I was back from home, then they will often refer to me as Tumi. When I was growing up, we used to play games, lots and lots of games. Beredlala diketo, magwisha, kala ketle, hide and seek. That took a while to translate it into English. I think black man patile, no, black man patile, no. Nako ke sale ngwana, ne re tšea ditena. I wanna the brick house. Nako ke sale ngwana ne re tšea ditena tša go ya ga di brick houses. And then you cut it in half. And then it saw shape ya yona ke stena, and then it saw. And then we used to use those as if though they were cars, because a car, usually you set two people in front and two people at the back. And because the brick was like this, then this would be the front side of the car and this would be the back side of the car, and you can draw it or do whatever you want. And then we would make these little roads on the ground, and then you would push your cars. That's one of the games we used to play when we were very young. And then as we got older, we started making our cars with wires. And so I used to make wire cars. In fact, probably today, everyone I grew up with has a credit tab that they still haven't paid from those days, from me making their cars and fixing them. So I used to make wire cars when we were a little bit too older to continue playing with the brick ones. Then we started making our own wire cars. And I used to love doing that. In fact, that's one of the things that I was talking to some of my friends here who work for the Oslo Commune about, like having games from the south, and like within parks in Oslo, like building a couple of these wire cars and like inviting kids to come and play with them. Because now in my adult life, I make theater for children and young people, and so I would love to create something like this within a Norwegian society, because I think it was such a fun way to play when I was growing up that it would be nice. And also because we would tell stories to each other about, where we were going, and we made all of that stuff up. But it was just a nice, fun way of playing as kids. I think maybe that's where I get my storytelling from, because then we would make up all these stories on the spot, and we didn't even think about it. It wasn't like, today we structured the narrative about, you'll talk about this, I'll talk about this. No, we just arrived, and you would say, I'm coming from here and I'm going there to drop off something, and you pick up grass and you load it, and then you're off to deliver it somewhere else. So yeah, that's probably one of the influences now thinking back in hindsight. Heritage Month for me in South Africa was always a very interesting time, because we used to make dingane. So when I was growing up, our Heritage Day used to be called Dingaan Day. And on that day, an oversized overall and then fitted with as many layers of clothes as you could, and then until you made it this really big person, and then you usually covered their face, and then you would have people who would follow this figure, and they would sing a song, Dingane o kgopela tjhelete. Dingane is asking for money. And if you threw a coin down, so the song would say, Latlela tjhelete, latlela penu tla bona motlholo, latlela penu tla bona motlholo. Throw a penny and you will see a miracle. And if you threw a penny, then Dingane, this figure, would dance for you. And then the song would direct Dingane on how to dance. So it could be, like a snake or like a worm, and he would do like a dance of some kind. So I grew up with that Dingane my whole life, my most of my childhood. And then I don't know when in South Africa they changed Dingane to Heritage Day, and slowly that culture is dying of doing Dingane that way, celebrating this holiday that way. And now it was more about celebrating South Africa as, a multi-diverse country. And I think the first few years, we would dress up if we could with our cultural clothes, but we didn't really have cultural clothes that you would dress up for specifically this day, because it was kind of made up halfway in our modern history. So unfortunately, when I was growing up, now in my adult life, there isn't really much that marks this month anymore, because what we did as kids was taken away. And I think that's one of the reasons why today Dingan, or our Heritage Month, has devolved into a Braai Day. Because there's nothing really left to do other than put on a cultural attire and go on about your normal everyday life. So now in South Africa, when I'm in South Africa, usually we would go out into a park, get our braais, and have a big party. I think this year it will be the first time I'm celebrating Heritage Day outside of South Africa. And I'm also going to throw a braai with friends. And although, Norwegians and their sense of braai is, their culture around braaiing is very weird. They've got these sausages that, they taste horrible. And then they wrap them in this naan. Yeah, naan-like bread. And then some sauce, and that's it. Ours is almost a way of life in South Africa. And there's a lot we pack into it. It's not just the wors, but it's your chicken and beef and the marinating, and it's a whole activity. And here is just like a tiny sausage. It's one of the things that I think, as a South African now living in Norway, I would really like to see at least the people around me change a little bit. And I've made it a mission to show them the proper braai. If there's one thing Norwegian friends around me will know, is a proper South African braai. Because I think there are just so few things that in the world of barbecuing that I've seen that are better. That will be hopefully one of my contributions to the Norwegian society.